So you might be wondering, what even is understitching? Well, it's basically a line of stitching that you sew just inside of your facing or your pocket bag to keep it from rolling to the outside of the garment while you're wearing it. The stitching doesn't show on the outside of the garment at all, but it really makes a huge difference in the final result that you get and in getting professional results. So to show you how to actually do understitching, I have this pair of shorts that I'm making. So these are actually the shorts version of the Megan Nielsen Opal Pants pattern, and I have the pattern right here. Here it is. So it's this pattern in case you're curious, but I have them to the point here where the pockets are attached to the main pieces. So I have 4 pieces like this, 2 fronts and 2 backs, and just the pockets are attached. And so before I go ahead and sew up the side seams or the crotch seams or anything like this, I need to understitch my pockets so that once this is all sewn up and I'm wearing my shorts, the pockets will stay right where they're supposed to be and will be looking good. So the first step is to press your seam allowances towards your pocket bag or facing piece. So you want to press your seam allowances away from your main piece and towards your facing or your pocket piece. So here I'm pressing my seam allowances on my shorts away from the main piece and towards the pocket pieces. So once my seam allowances are pressed towards the pockets, it's time for understitching. So to understitch, we just need to sew a line of stitching through both the facing or pocket piece and the seam allowance below it. And we want to make sure that we're sewing about 1/8 of an inch, so it's a very small amount, just past the seam that attaches the pocket or facing piece to your main piece. So just inside of the facing piece and going through the facing and the seam allowance below it. So by attaching your facing or your pocket bag piece to the seam allowance below it, you're going to help keep it nice and crisp, make sure everything will stay in place and it won't roll to the outside once everything is sewn up. And this process is exactly the same regardless of what type of facing or pocket you're sewing. So here's an example of a shirt where I understitched the facing around the neckline so that you can see an example of something a little different. So any type of facing, you just want to sew through the facing and seam allowance only so that your stitching will not show on the outside of the garment and it'll keep everything looking good. So I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial and I will see you in the next one.